Hello again. I did say later. Today I was going to come back on and talk to you because I wasn't finished my thoughts, but I still in my day. I'm still doing my work, and I'm trying harder not to fill up so much of my free time with work. And this is still work. Like I call myself, and I'm telling you this for a reason. I always have a reason for everything I say and do, as it pertains to teaching or educating. And sometimes I don't, I guess. But in this role, I do. I was using Mondays, which is usually not pretty full with people needing resources or any kind of assistance. So Mondays and Sundays are usually the days I reserve to be able to do this and talk to you. And it's also traditional for me because I was raised in a church. And so having a day set aside to speak or to have some kind of solitude with your spiritual self, that's Sundays. And so I just kept with that tradition. And Mondays just as an homage to some of my ancestors. But I realized also that maybe I should change that too. It's still kind of daylight, even though it's kind of overcast because of the rain. But it's daytime on a Wednesday because it's still a work day technically. I'm trying to actually just use my free time to end. I mean, I'm still going to go to the park and do what I do because I enjoy doing that. But I also want to give myself the opportunity to not have to do that and just enjoy the park and sit there in my solitude. In my solitude. I love that song. But usually when I get that though, y'all, this feeling overwhelms me and I feel joyful. Even in something I'm saying that might be challenging, I feel joyful. And then I want to share that. And I don't know what that's called, but it's a feeling that hits me. Even if my intention is not to say much, something overwhelms me and I'm just like, okay, I got to talk about it. Those who hear it, great, but I just feel like I need to talk about it. And then I talk. But I was thinking, it's like, I very rarely, I'm sorry I'm shaking it so much, the camera so much, because again, I don't have my setup like I need to have it set up. And I have had a wardrobe change mostly because I didn't click in that dress. And like, I need to get the food smell off of me before I continue with my day. And even though it's one of my favorite dresses that I had on in the previous video, it's one of my favorite dresses. I love the colorings of that and the feel of the fabric. I'm a texture person. Anyway, I was thinking when I watched it back, and I don't always do that, but I'm getting more consciously aware of putting more of an interest and stock into this myself. Like I told myself if I didn't care, then it wouldn't matter if nobody else cared. Well, that also sends out the vibration that I don't care. And I actually do care. I care if you hear me. I care if you understand me. I care if something I say is helpful to you or not. I care if you hear my stories too. Because I spent a lot of time not being able to share those things with people without fear of retribution, without fear of some kind of negative impact upon myself or my life. And so I care about those things. And I realize I feel safer to say that than I ever felt in my entire life. And so when I was watching it back, I was like, oh wait, I forgot a sign. There's one specific, well, two really, but one really for specific sign that always capes for me, always rides for me, and that is Capricorn hunty. Capricorns. But Capricorns for me, it's like I don't even have to mention it. It's like Capricorns are always there. No matter what, Capricorns are there. I am surrounded by Capricorns all the time with the best intentions and wanting to learn, wanting to grow without fear. I know a lot of people say Aries are fearless when they're going after a goal, and that's not true. But listen, Capricorns are fearless. when they're trying to achieve and reach goals, they are fearless in the way that they love and protect those around them that they care about. Don't mess with a Capricorn's loved ones love. Because, talking about bite. And when I tell you, if I'm in the midst of a war, those who I want to have back to back with me, like to have my back, like we back to back when we got swords out, child, that will be Taurus, Capricorn, and Libra. For realsy reals. Every single time, Taurus, Capricorn, and Libra. Because I have no doubt when push comes to shove, those are the ones that are going to show up. Those are the ones that are going to show out. And that's not to negate any other signs, love. This has been my experience. It don't have this. It could be different signs for you, but that's who vibrate with. That's who be rocking with me the most. All right, and you toss in some Scorpios, for sure. I guess you would say the later signs. So from Scorpio all the way to Aquarius, kind of like that. And you know, starting at Libra, actually Libra all the way to Aquarius, but really from Libra into Capricorn. Aquarius is like a 50-50 mix for me. It depends on what type of Aquarius you is. Yeah, you're smart, but are you able to use that ability to be intelligent, to be of service to yourself first? And if just of service to yourself, cool. But also of service to others if you're going to have a big mouth. and that, excuse me, sinuses is still sinusing. That's the part that be getting me sometimes with Aquarius is like, can you back up that bulk? Because some can and some can't. And that's a 50-50 bag for me. It's like, why is you balking so much? Are you balking so much because you can bite? And are you balking so much because you're being a bully, or because you actually have a great an injustice that you want to resolve? Like, ask yourself the pertinent questions before we start barking or before we start biting. And sometimes that's not always the case. And I can tell you from my self experience, sometimes that wasn't the case for me. Sometimes I was barking at folks that wasn't biting me because I was wounded, right? And when you're a wounded animal, any wounded animal, including human beings, especially human beings, everything seems like it's out to get you sometimes. Or maybe I can just speak for myself. But I've had moments like that. But there is no other animal other than Aquarius that handles that the worst. And sometimes I gotta be weary of some of y'all. Love you. But sometimes you're too smart for your own good. Sometimes you gotta know when to really read things from an emotional space, and that's the part what makes me leery. If you haven't grown up the emotional part of yourself, see, the intelligence alone is not enough. We have to grow up the emotional part of ourselves. And when you lean on the intelligence too much, now I know I didn't go on a tangent, y'all go ahead and follow me. When you lean on the intelligence too much, the emotional self tends to suffer. You actually have to actively participate in growing yourself up emotionally. Aquarius is Scorpios. Well, Scorpios are highly emotionally intelligent, but it's something sometimes the Scorpio can lack in their ability to associate with other people and empathize with other people's positions, because sometimes it can gravitate towards being self-centered, not in a vindictive or evil way necessarily all the time, but sometimes it can go that way if you ain't growing up those emotions appropriately. And all I'm saying is just become more emotionally aware of yourself and in tune with yourself and the people around you. It might become problematic. A Scorpio that does, honey, a Scorpio that got it together, honey, ain't nobody messing with a Scorpio that got it together. And I am biased. My mother was a Scorpio, and some of my favorite people are Scorpios. Okay? But I've experienced a time or two. I've experienced, who alive past 20, they experienced at least some significant thing from every zodiac sign. Nobody. But I'm telling you my experiences. My favorite human being that was ever alive was my mother, but I'm a bit biased. That's Scorpio. And a lot of my friends that I cultivated in the Coast Guard when I was a part of his Coast Guard family were Scorpios. Some Capricorns, but Scorpios, right? And a lot of them who ride or die with me till this day, even when others have fell off, are Scorpios. There's some when they're loyal, they're like Aries. That's what Scorpio and Aries got in common. When they are loyal, it's 100 because they saw through everybody else's mess. They saw through you and saw to the core of you. And if they get to the point where they can see to the core of you and they see ain't nothing bullshit about it, you got a loyal friend for life. That's what I can say about them Scorpios. But I digress. I also remember there was one other time where I felt safe and protected. It was a Sag. I felt safe and protected. I was sick and I felt like I was running for my damn life, y'all. Because I wasn't sure who was attacking me or my family or trying to attack me and my family. At the time, I was certain of who it was. And to this day, I decided to stop investigating because at a certain point, what can you do? And even then, I still was holding the rope for somebody. And they ain't appreciate it. And I'm like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just see when someone doesn't appreciate me? Why can't I just let go? But I've learned since to do that. And it took a lot of pain, hurt, and misery for me to learn that. And when I tell you them lessons get harder and harder every time, they sure do. Anyway, by the time I was leaving, I left my home to go to the mountains of Alaska. And it was a Sag that held me down at that point. Because when I tell you I was in no condition to fight nobody, but I was willing to fight somebody, especially behind my children. But I was like, if what's going to keep them safe is for me to be gone, then that's what I'm going to do because I don't know who's doing these things. And when I say these things, I'll give you some examples. I told you I used to work for MHRs. And MHRs is basically just counselors that go into the homes and the schools of children and families and give them the resources and counseling needs that they require. Well, at a certain point, someone started to follow me to my clients' houses and slash my tires. Someone started coming to my house and slashing my tires. And this happened over maybe a 1.5, 2 month span. And I couldn't figure out. At first, I thought I was just, New Orleans streets are messed up. So I just thought I was just messing up my tires, or my tires was just old, or, whatever. I kept making excuses for it, but it was happening so much that I was like, who is doing this? And at first, it wasn't going to my clients' houses. It was just my home and maybe at school. But then after a while, I realized they were coming to my client house, or whoever it was slashing my tires at their homes. I'm like, so whoever this is got to be dangerous. I'm literally leading them to my babies. I still consider them my babies. When I was providing services, a lot of times for very young children, I considered them my babies, but I had no evidence other than the flat tire and my word. There was nobody to pin it on, even though I suspected. I mean, my windshield was cracked. I mean, a whole bunch of just weird things were happening around my home. And when it was just around my home, yeah, it was stressful and nerve-wracking. But when it got to a point where I started realizing that I'm having sabotage in my vehicle when I'm seeing my clients at their homes, that's when I'm like, all right, something got to give. And there's nothing I can do other than protect myself and protect them. And then I realized I have to protect my children too. So it was at that time I was like, I got to go. And it made me sad because I loved my job, even though they was abusing the hell out of sis and everybody else on staff. But MHRs tend to do that. We talked about this before. If you're not sure which video, go back and look at them all and see which one I'm talking about, MHRs and what they do. Doesn't mean I didn't love my job, but I had to protect my kiddos and protect myself. And I already knew from experience no one at my job was going to hear me. And experience is like, I've already recently at that point in time, talked to one of my supervisors about feeling like I was unsafe in several environments already. So telling them that didn't seem like it's going to go anywhere, especially since I didn't know who was doing what. Anyway, and I was in no condition. I was not in fighting condition. Let's just put it that way. Even though I was willing to and ready in my own mind. But a friend of mine at the time was like, just come to me. They can't get you here. And if you're gone, we discuss it. If you're gone, then ain't nothing to attack. And it's one of the saddest decisions I had to make because my boy was graduating high school. My last child was graduating high school. And I didn't get to be there for it. Because I had to choose his safety over me being there. I was not emotionally well. I was not physically well. I was not spiritual well to be around any of them. And at that time, I was doing the best I could to recover. All I did was read for folks, whatever I need to do to make money. I read for folks and taught folks things about astrology and things like this. Some of the similar work that I do right now. But most of what I do now is divvy out resources and help people find counselors and help people meditate and help people ground themselves and tell them what the steps are and things like this. I don't usually think about this time frame in my life very much, but it made me think about that. I was like, wait a minute, there was a time I was protected by someone. And we're not even friends. It's not we not friends. Those friends were for over 20 years. It's just that we fell off. It got weird. And that's the thing about I was talking about earlier about the spiritual community. It's like if you don't check your ego at the door and realize it's not about you specifically, it's not about clout, it's not about fame, it's not about how you look, it's about helping folk. And if you have fun along the way, cool. Then maybe it might turn into a problematic circumstance, and I think that's what happened between us. No think I know. No love lost at all. But that's the only other time in my life I can feel like somebody actually just grounded themselves and say, you know what, you fought for me and you loved on me, and I'm going to give it all back to you all at once. And that's what she did. And I stayed in Alaska for months and didn't come back here until one of my babies got sick. And it was like, I don't know what's wrong with her. It was the weirdest thing. A cat scratch. And it was like life or death situation because she got bit. She got not bit, but she got scratched by a cat. And I'm like, now I have to go home. This time, that's when I knew it was time for me to go home. They'll always get me running. No matter what, they'll always get me running. And when I came back, I was kind of changed. I was really changed in a lot of ways, and it confused them. And that's one of the things I'm like, my children had to sacrifice so much to be my children. I was constantly helping this one or helping that one. And then I'd be spent by the time I get home sometimes. So it was time for them to get the help. They'd come sit on by my bed. And sometimes it'd be the silliest stuff, and sometimes it'd be complex stuff. So I couldn't even go to the bathroom and take a bath without one of them in there. So their father would know the work I was doing out in the streets. And he would know that I'm working also a day job, and I'm also going to school in the evening. And now I have to deal with whatever teenage arguments or whatever they got going on. And he would send them away like, get out. She ain't got nothing left. My hope was like, he understands this now. He's always telling me I'm free to speak on whatever I want to. So this is no shade on him. But he didn't have the emotional intelligence at the time to help me with that. And so sometimes they felt like I wasn't there for them. And I always thought to myself I was doing all that for them. And that's not fair to them to expect them to understand that. But I hope someday they do. If nothing else, I hope someday they forgive me. Anyway. But when I came back, I was even more different. And it was a big transition. But I can tell you, without a shadow of a doubt, I felt safe where I was. And when I came here, I had safety coming back here. And even though I was different emotionally and spiritually, physically, I was so sick before I left and still sick when I got back. I had already lost like 40 pounds. And I lost an additional 20 pounds or so after my arrival. And I was in the skin and bones. And that's when my ex spouse kind of tagged in. It's like, okay, I got it from here. And I still was doing my work. I just was doing it from here and from here, not in a physical sense. Helping whoever I can and doing whatever I could do. But I also was barking a lot. It's like, oh, that's all I could do at the time was barking. I still felt bad about it. And then there were times I would giggle about it. But just know, during that whole time, a lot of time I'll be sitting back laughing at everything I'm saying and everything I'm typing and everything I'm writing because I already know me. I don't want to hurt nobody. I never did. But if I gotta put on a show of force, I know how to do it. I didn't think I knew how to do it in that way, but I did. And the harassment stopped. I think it was because a lot of folk got shamed without me even have to say their name. So they stopped doing. So I never did fully pinpoint who was doing what they were doing or why. But it stopped, and that's all that matters to me. But yeah, that was the only other time I can think of was somebody just kind of stepped in and shielded me from being harmed. And to this day, I appreciate it. But I'm not changing how I vibrate right now. I'm vibrating for me. And then secondary to everybody else. And it has to be a little bit of reciprocity in that. Because if there's no reciprocity, then I'm just draining my cup. I'm not doing that no more for nobody. I don't recommend anybody do it. Listen, I was just telling somebody the other day, sometimes you gotta be selfish. Sometimes you do. Sometimes it's healthy to be selfish. How you being selfish is what matters. Okay? Don't be selfish and just take and never give back. That's not a good selfish. I'm talking about selfish in a sense of, all right, you putting work towards something, what are you receiving from that work? What are you receiving? Is it serving a purpose that brings you joy and happiness? Because see, that's what I was saying earlier. Excuse me. Sometimes I go to the park. And I just go there because I enjoy the vibe. I enjoy being outside, the silence, the beauty of it. I go during off hours. Now you might say Sundays in the park is not off hours. It depends on how early you go. I'm not going in the evening towards 2-3 o'clock. That's when it's busiest. I'm going early today while folks are still in church and people are still getting ready to set up their picnics and whatnot. Every now and again it already be set up. People out there. But I also go to an area that is not a lot of folks in it. So I can do it if I want to. And I enjoy doing that. As long as I enjoy doing this work, I'm going to keep on doing it. See, there were times I didn't enjoy it. There were times where I just felt like, what's the point of me doing it? But I can tell you, without a shadow of a doubt, the me that is now feels on a visceral level that I don't know what I would do for its purpose-driven life outside of being a helping person, outside of being an educator, outside of walking someone from one door to the next. You need to go through another door. You want to go through another door in life. If I know the way, I'll walk you to that door. And even though I've had my challenges with being that mothering figure with people, doesn't mean I didn't love some parts of it. Seeing people improve and knowing that they feel loved by proxy of my presence was the gift that I got from that. It doesn't mean that I didn't additionally need someone that was a friend that wasn't that. And that's the thing I was missing. Is having friends that are just my friends, that I ain't got to do all that with. There's just reciprocity, and we could just sit and be peers. I think that's what I was seeking in the spiritual community too. And I've accepted the fact that I didn't have that. But maybe I was seeking it in the wrong space. I don't know. They seem to have that with each other. That's good enough. But I'm content with where I am. Being at peace does not require an outside of you situation. It can be internal. You don't have to be going in big groups to clubs and things of this nature. Child, if somebody invited me to go to a nightclub, I'm going to ask them, who are you talking to? You have the wrong number. Who are you texting? Who are you calling? Because I know you didn't just invite me to no nightclub. Because I'm not going. Is it somebody's birthday? And are they turning a significant age, like 30, 50, 40, 70? Because otherwise I'm not going. How much food is they got? Do they have seats? How loud is the music? And this has been me since I was in my 20s. It's never been my vibe. Never. I never enjoyed music so loud that I cannot commune with the person next to me. Absolutely not. We're not doing it. I am not participating in it. And that's maybe for other people, but that ain't for me. Never was, child. So it don't require that. Happiness and joy, socialization, and all these things. Excuse me. And no, I'm not starting this video over. Y'all just going to have to hear that burp. Does not require, it's like, I wouldn't forsake that because somebody told y'all to be sad right now. Somebody's signaling to y'all to be scared right now. Somebody's signaling to y'all that you got to give up right now. Somebody's signaling to y'all that somebody else is controlling your joy. I'm going to say, don't forsake your fellowship and with your fellow man, and be in your community. Love on folks. See what you can do to help out. Instead of sitting in sadness, go find something creative to do with yourself. It's like my grandma. I learned a long time ago never tell my grandma I was bored about nothing. Because she would always find me something to do. Always. I think the same thing about sadness, I think. When you sad, well, let's go find something to be joyful about. Or let's look around ourselves and see something that's we can be joyful about. Because otherwise, you just gonna let a feeling bully you? Now, people do that all the time. It's called depression, especially when they stay in it. But if you can do something about it in the morning before it gets too bad, I suggest you do that. Find something that brings you joy. Now, I'm gonna say something that might be controversial in the moment, but whatever. If it's not, it's not. People, young people, old people in between, who are always the people that get checked on and don't check on nobody. Go ahead and check on some folk. Think about those people who check on you. Check on them. How you doing? How you feeling? Wish them well. Practice doing that more often. Send out signals of love. Cause let me tell you, turn it into vibrations of vitriol, disdain, and hate towards each other has not served anybody well. Especially not over the last 4 years. Not a single person. And what is begot of that is what happens. What you put in the pot is what you're going to end up serving or end up having to eat. Now, I'll be the first one to tell y'all, ain't nothing good gonna happen with somebody saying that we need to be all love in life, because that's when the animals and the plants take over. We're in charge of this land for a reason. We need to also know how to defend ourselves, but how do we do that? By attacking each other? Not necessarily. How we do that is understanding that we're all walking these paths in life. We're all got our own external and internal struggles. It's okay to be kinder to each other and sometimes ignore those who are not being kind. and move and mosey right along. Go towards something you can create. Gravitate towards something you can make. So if one group ain't listening to you, then go to another that might. If one group ain't friendly to you, go to another group that might be friendly. And if none of that works out, it's okay being by yourself for a while. When's the last time any of y'all was okay being by yourself for a day? 2, 3. Let me tell you, the strongest, this is a subjective opinion, so y'all can take this with a grain of salt. The strongest among us can be by themselves for days. The strongest among us can be by themselves without need to talk to another human being. The strongest among us, the ones who will survive pretty much anything like a cockroach, can even go hours and hours and days without need to be on a device. Because that mental strength leads to physical strength, you see. I'm willing to bet, and I'm not a betting person because I don't even know how to bluff. I ain't never bluff, not even when I play poker. And I'm pretty good at playing poker. I want to play what I know is going to win. Anyway. I know some people don't play like that. They like to manipulate and do all these mind games. I don't do no mind games. I only play cards I can win. Anyway. But if I was a betting person, I'd be willing to bet those who can sit still in solitude are healthier overall than those who cannot. Those who can go without being on devices or scrolling somebody's app for hours mindlessly are physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually stronger than those who cannot. The lack of codependence on inanimate objects forces you to be mentally, physically, and spiritually strong. Because that power that's coming from outside of you does not penetrate. All the power is that you hold within yourself is coming from within you. So the colors and lights are not guiding you to your next destination. You are. That's all I'm saying. Go have conversations, real conversations with folks. That's a suggestion. Y'all don't have to take it. Read some books. Like I know I sound like old. I know I'm an old lady. Read a book. It's okay to read. When's the last time you read something that wasn't behind a flashing light on your phone? And I'm not gonna be sitting here and be a hero. I can't tell you the last time I read a full book. Cannot. Things have been so easy. I look at the passages of the book I already have on the shelf, on my phone, and I need to get away from doing that. But I do believe that the collective will be a hell of a lot healthier if we did less of this. And that's not just a subjective opinion. That is a fact. Objectively, scrolling on the phones and gravitate towards likes and clicks. I've already explained it in a previous video, so if y'all want to, go back and watch that. I think the title of that video is Social Media is Not Always Helpful. And explain how I feel about that. And I thought for the longest time I shouldn't say nothing because there's so many people who like it. Well, while I'm at it, not giving a damn what nobody think of me in this regard, if I know it's something that is harmful and I've experienced it through others and myself that it's harmful, I'm gonna go ahead and say what I feel like. And if you don't like it, I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. I have nothing to apologize for. It is what it is. Now, if I'm presented with different information that changes my mind, I am open to that. But as of right now, there are apps, especially TikTok, that is not healthy for our minds in the way that it operates. Hell, Instagram ain't much better. A lot of folks say, Facebook is for old people. Maybe it is. But none of them are great for the mind. But I have to choose one. I'm going to choose Facebook. There's less grabby stuff and flashing light and colors and people talking at you and arguing with you and all this stuff. They just right now mean you would have to read a little bit more. There's less flashiness, more opportunity to actually have a conversation and to share, really share, not this fake stuff that have experienced. Like cultivating an entire identity online that's not your real life. That is very strange to me. Very strange. And I don't always see it as a healthy thing because I've witnessed enough people have their whole lives torn apart because of those unhealthy dynamics. But I'm like, tell me what's good about it. And then a friend of mine, I actually posed this question to. She sat me down and said, you know, a lot of the outreach for our mental health services, as well as the education of our mental health services that happened over the last 4 years, you already know because you was a part of that dynamic in some way where it was people just advocating from that perspective because they wasn't doing it in schools. It was coming from there. I was like, okay, touche. And a lot of the different news stories that we hear about nowadays, we get it more unfiltered from the average citizen than we do from newscasters because newscasters are paid to filter the truth and to read a script, whereas the average citizen is not. I'm like, also, touche. But can we find a way to do that that's not damaging our children's brains? There has to be a middle ground, and TikTok ain't it. That's all I feel about it. And I'm gonna tell you, I have bias. As it pertains to TikTok, I have bias. There's some things I cannot say. Oh, I could say, but I don't want to. But it's like too much is given, much is expected kind of thing. So when I went up in there, and I've made no secret about this, when I went up in there, my intention was to just join and to just support and to just, I was just happy. I was just happy to see more people that seemed kind of like me. And I felt so alone for a very, very long time. Only to figure out these are probably some of the same people that was doxing me and hexing me and all these things, and I had no idea. Sometimes I'm the last to know when somebody don't like me. And I don't, I'd be confused. Like, why did they do that? I'm so confused. Why did they do that? And that's when it would lead to that wounding I was talking to you about in my last video before last. But like, I must have done something for them to be upset. So let me do some more shared work. Because initially I'll lash out because who wouldn't? You just tried to hurt me and I don't know why. I don't care. I'm going to fight back. But then I'm like, should I fight back? Did I do them something? Let me sit down with this for a while. But also let me heal that. Let me heal the anger and hurt I feel from that. While also trying to examine whether I did something. Kind of like that. And I got tired of doing that over and over and over again. It took me less than a week, maybe a week and a half for me to be like, this ain't it. This ain't it for me. And then once I backed away from posting, I also just was in the audience and I'm just like, this cannot be good for anybody's emotionality or brains long term. Just from a scientific perspective. I'm looking at the damage it can potentially do to a person's emotions and psyche. Like, something ain't right here. I just can't put my finger quite on it, but something ain't right here. And only to find out, even if creators of this app won't even let their children be on this thing like we on this thing. Like, this feels like a weapon. Let me back up on out of here slowly, because nobody else seemed to realize something's not right here. It is a useful tool in its own way, but we got to figure out a way to use it better, I guess. But I don't know what the resolution to that is. I just backed away and said, I'm going to let y'all have your purgatory. Because that's what it felt like to me up in there. There was some beautiful things and some funny things and some lovely people. But overall, I didn't get good vibes out of there. I really didn't. And maybe that's a me thing. And I'm okay with being alone or island on that. But I'm going to stand 10 toes down and say, overall, I don't feel like it's healthy. But that's just me. But I've already told you my bias. So take that with a grain of salt too, because I do have that bias. I still do feel that way. Anyway. And I'm saying this to you because I want to encourage you to not forsake fellowshipping with each other and having joyful times with each other and good conversation with each other. Don't do that. Don't forsake each other. Love on each other more now, not less. Well, this person voted this way, this person voted that way, so we gotta hate each other, do you? Well, that made it so that these people can... Did they? Because those people who you perceive have so much power can choose at any time not to do those things. And just because they think that way doesn't mean they're evil incarnate. You can see the good and humanity in them in some kind of way if you want to. Anytime you want to. There's people out there signaling to you that you have to be enemies to everybody who disagree with you. And I dissent. And I always will. You don't have to hate each other. You don't. You don't have to fight each other. You don't. If somebody coming on your lawn and they have a weapon, they're ready to try to take something that belongs to you, that's when you fight. If somebody attacking you and your life is in danger, that's when you fight. When you're fighting with your mind and your philosophies, that's also a fight. But that doesn't require you to hate someone you disagree with. It doesn't require you to see them as your enemy or less than human. And if you really want to judge something, I'm talking to the ones that were disappointed last week, for real, for real. That was a real reflection of where our country is, don't you know? And some things, they show you where lack of love happens and what it gives to you. So you can have love that grows, but in order for anything to grow, you must water it. And if you don't water love, it dies. It withers. It shrinks. And if all you got to throw out there is vitriol and hate at it, well, vitriol and hate will grow. We can find a way to be strong in the way that we love. Strong in the way that we demand equal rights. Strong in the way that we teach. Without having to create enemies out of those we are trying to convince that justice is sound. Because see, a lot of y'all spent a lot of time in the last 4 years just cussing folk out, calling them out, embarrassing them, shaming them. Well, what is the result of that? Somebody told you somewhere that you need to go ahead and do that all the time. And sometimes that is necessary because some people are just monsters in the way that they behave. But don't you know, there's more than one thing that could be, that ought to be blind, and karma is one of those things. So if you cause a negative feeling in somebody, that's karmic no matter what. You might say, but they did something wrong, huh? Yeah, but don't you know? You caused them harm. If they don't see the justice in it, it doesn't matter. You've created a karmic wave, a negative feeling and vibration. So how can we do that in a way where we're not causing so much havoc that we're harming whole families and bloodlines? How can we educate from a space of love while showing how strong we are and what we're not going to accept anymore? And I'm sorry, y'all. Look, I'm not going to yuck nobody's young. But putting on pink hats and going Marshawn Washington ain't did nothing, and it ain't solved no problems. It made it worse. And telling everybody they're wrong if they don't do it exactly the way you like them to do it, even though they're trying, is also not going to serve you none. Sometimes y'all took it too far with the bullying and aggression. And whenever the pendulum swings one way and it goes too far, it has nowhere but to go but the opposite direction. Now everybody looking for somebody to blame, go ahead and do me a favor and go walk to your nearest mirror and go look in it. And those of you who wasn't participating in none of that, and was just lovely, happy babies, doing the best you can, raising your families or living on your own, and just being a civilized human being and kind to yourselves and others, congratulations, y'all won. At least in my subjective opinion, y'all won. Because 9 times out of 10, these are the people who are unconcerned and unbothered by none of this bull crap. Because they decided, you know what? Here's what I can do something about. Here's what I'm not going to participate in. And no, I don't like that. So I'm not going to participate in that. Oh, do you need help? Oh, no worry. You're my neighbor. That's all that matters. They didn't even care whether there was a red sticker on their car or a blue sticker on their car. They were just like, you're my neighbor. That's all that matters. And no, I'm not saying that some of these things are correct in the way that, I mean, when I say correct, I mean fair. That's a better word, fair. As far as laws and things like that coming down the line, I'm not saying it's fair. It's not. Some things are just obtuse for no reason other than being obtuse. And yes, we still should speak with our big chests and our voices on those things. And in a way that we can do that. But if we keep trying to do that through making enemies, we ain't gonna get nowhere. You have to make allies. A true ally that is created out of nothing doesn't come because you beat them over the head with what you feel like is the right way to do something. Sometimes it's just showing your humanity. And that don't work for everybody. It don't. You're right. If you said that in your head, sometimes you might actually have to mess around and whoop somebody's ass. Sometimes. But did you try treating them with human decency and kindness to see where that goes? It's like some people like, I did try. Well then, unless you gotta whoop their ass, ignore them and go to the next. Ain't nobody said it was easy. I know some people think it's supposed to be, but it ain't. Changing hearts and minds and evolving the consciousness of a collective of the entire planet, it's not easy work. It's one by one work. It's not crowd surfing. It's about being a model of what you hope to see in the world. And that means that every single day of your life, on and off camera, you are walking it like you talking. And see, not everybody can do that. And that's okay. You can try sometime. Each one teach one, do one. You know, the old nurses model. Like that. And we can work as one. And we can live as one. But first you got to see that we're not separate. You can't let somebody else tell you that we're separate. And that you got to hate somebody based on anything other than what they do to you personally. Now, I saw them do this to somebody else. Okay, if you witnessed it, okay. If you saw that, then okay. If you know about that, then okay. But you ain't got to hate them. Stripping people their humanity based on disagreements is part of the problem, I perceive. And we ain't gonna get nowhere with that. Besides, you don't think everybody see what the problems are in our society, including those who disagree with you? They see it. Some people benefit from it and are perfectly fine with benefiting from it. Is that me telling you to hate them? No. That's me telling you to look beyond the phone and see the need. It is harder to see the need when you disagree. Well, I'm challenging you to master yourself and to become the master of yourself and become the master of your energy. Look beyond those faults and see what is needed. And then you can have a chance and a possibility of helping to heal it if you be so inclined. Otherwise, just go mind your business, live your best life. Yeah, it's up to you. Ain't nobody gonna make you do nothing. This is me telling you there's a way forward that's not necessarily about hating each other. while also standing on 10 when you really do believe in something. Like right now, I'm finna go hang out with some folks, which is a mixed bag. Yep, they're a mixed bag of every ideology, religions, political spectrums, and guess what none of us do? Cuss at each other. Talk crap about this or that and the other. You know what we do when we see each other? We don't ask about none of that. Hey, how you doing? How's your family? We're all just kind to each other. And that's what I like about it. That's what I love about it. Every now and again, you'd have an an errant a person with too much time on their hands saying or doing something they ain't got no business doing. But one thing I can tell you is I don't concern myself with that not much, because I'm surrounded by good folks. I don't care about where they go to church. I respect it. I don't care about what they believe and don't believe. I respect it. And then what I care about is how they treat people, how they treat me, how they operate in their community. Make it smaller. What you see and don't see, make it a little bit smaller. See around your surroundings and see how you look and how you feel. I'm gonna say this man's name one time. It doesn't matter now, in the big scheme of things. But in my neighborhood I used to live in, we have like 4-bedroom houses in this neighborhood. And he had been there for a long time. And his son had grown and gone off to college and all that, so he was living there by himself. I think his spouse passed away, but I can't remember. But this is a white gentleman, Caucasian, if you will. And the neighborhood started to have more Asians and black people and just a mix of everything, right? And he was the only standout person in the neighborhood the first time around that still had Trump stickers and flags and all that, and nobody bothered him. But when I tell you, when the kids would go outside and play, he'd always wave at them or throw them the ball back, and he was always very friendly. Never gave a problem. One of my neighbors had a baby, and this is a black female. And he came over with some purple roses and gave it to her once he knew she was home. Just a good neighbor. Ain't nobody bothered him. It annoyed us and we would make fun of it, when I out of earshot of him that he had that sticker on the neighborhood that was so diverse. Because even the other white folks in the neighborhood was about that life. But we just saw him as our neighbor. And then one time, I was having a little bit of car trouble. He did stop what he was doing. He was mowing his lawn and came over and helped me when my husband was deployed. I never had an issue or a problem out of him. I just didn't care for some of the things that his political beliefs led me to believe he was. And let me tell you something. I still to this day think of him as a good person. Like, how could you? Because he believes in listen, that ain't none of my business. I know some people want you to hate each other because of Alright, I'm gonna tell you no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. Do I believe that healthcare should be free? Yep. I believe education should also be free. Yep. We should have a 4-day work week at max. There should be maternity and paternity leave. I believe in access to freedom of choice. Freedom of religion. Y'all already know I don't believe that religion should be in nobody's schools. All those things. But those are my beliefs. I can't push those on somebody else. But what I can do is operate out of love and understanding. And realize it's not all what it seems. And some of these folks are just as scared as you are and being signaled the opposite direction so that you can all hate each other. They're being told the things that are on the other side's agenda is the best things to keep them safe, and they are fearful too. And as long as y'all keep fighting one another and throwing rocks across the aisle at each other, nobody gonna look up to the real problem in the ivory towers. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, I didn't talk to y'all for almost 55 minutes this time. Cha! Let me go do something I want to do. And not that I didn't want to do this, but I'm going to do something fun. Anyway, you're loved.